China doesn't want to fight these wars. So they say empires last around 200 years, and we are now in the twilight of the American empire.
I feel like I'm losing my mind here. I mean, truly, I feel like I'm going crazy. Watching millions of people nodding along to this guy, thinking that they're getting some sort of brilliant, unfiltered truth about the collapse of the US and how China is not really that dangerous. As someone who actually grew up in China, listening to this guy is the most bizarre sense of deja vu. Because this guy, a naturalized Canadian citizen by the way, is on a Western podcast speaking in English, yet reciting perfectly the exact same brainwashing that I was subject to in China. It is wild to watch Westerners just eat this up. This guy is executing a very specific Chinese psychological tactic called chang, shuai. It basically means talking down. In this context, he is talking down the US so that people in the West in general will lose hope and stop fighting against authoritarianism. Hello there, my name is Lou. Before we start, as always, remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so they say empires last around 200 years. And so we are now in the twilight of the American empire. And what we know is that when empires decline, it's always for the same reasons.
It just feels so bizarre because I'm used to hearing this narrative in Chinese, the brainwashed Chinese teachers who were brainwashing their children, myself included. So many people in China were convinced by this theory because it's true to Chinese history. If you look at Chinese ancient history, it's always like that. It's one empire after another, one emperor after another. It never moves forward. And you know the irony about that argument? The true non-democratic empire here is China.
But China does not want to do that. China's perfectly happy with America being the world's hegemon because you have to invest so much of your resources into fighting these wars that back up your nation. China doesn't want to fight these wars.
Okay, I have to interrupt here. China doesn't want to be the boss is probably Chinese English-facing propaganda 101. And this is a lie that China has been repeating for years. And guess what? People keep believing them. As someone who speaks 2 languages, I can tell you that China tells a very different story to its fellow citizens and to its fellow party members. But when the camera is on, when they're speaking English, they know the Westerners want to believe what they want to believe. And that is China is this exotic, oriental, peace-seeking, great civilization. But are they really that peaceful? What about the cyber attacks that the PRC constantly launches towards the Taiwanese government? What about the infiltration in US politics? We have to look at the facts here. And the facts are, China may say that they don't want to be the boss of you. They may say that they want to stay out of your business, but they don't. They never have. In China, there is this Chinese phrase that every single Chinese student knows. It's called fuxing, to make China great again. For as long as I can remember, the Chinese Communist Party has always used that word to educate its citizens. When the camera is off, the Chinese Communist Party always tells its citizens that the US is the CCP's biggest enemy. Not a competitor, not a counterpart, not a collaborator. It is our enemy.
So what China is going to do is try to triangulate between Russia and the United States. This is what happened during the Cold War, when China was not actually on the side of the Soviet Union. China was part of the non-aligned community.
That is just an outright lie. I hope people are not buying this nonsense, quite frankly. China and Soviet Union, especially in the early Cold War stage, they were very close to each other. China was never part of the non-alignment community. A simple Google search will tell you what happened.
And that's what China is going to strive for in World War III, where China may help out Iran, may provide financing for Russia, but it's also going to strike deals with the United States as well. So I think that Trump and President Xi are supposed to meet at least 3 times, possibly 4 times this year. The first will be in mid-May in Beijing. And I think that they will start a process in which China and America come to an arrangement that benefits both economically.
He can be more obvious about his true agenda here. I've watched hours of his interview. There are a few themes that are consistent in his speech. He has a few talking points. Number one, China is not as bad as you think. China does not want to be aggressive, even though China threatens to take Taiwan by force. Number two is that the US is dying. The US is going down, and it's inevitable, and you should all accept that. Number three, now this is the one that's, I think, even less obvious, is that you should still trade with China. It's no secret that the Chinese economy is plummeting right now, and China desperately wants to get back to trading with the US. They're being destroyed right now by the US tariffs. So he is effectively right now paving the way for Xi Jinping and giving the US public an excuse, an incentive to go back to trading with China. But when you think about it, what does the rest of the world get by trading with China? Trading with a disruptive authoritarian regime comes with a lot of hidden costs. The cost of China not playing by the rules. By Chinese law, a private company has to cooperate with the Chinese government. With the money that the Chinese government steals from its people, they can back private companies and essentially flood your local market. They steal your business ideas, they steal your technology all the time. So there's a lot of long-term risks that are going to put democracies that are law-binding in a disadvantage. That is why trading with China for democracies has always been a double-edged sword.
America wants China to continue to buy US treasuries in order to finance the American debt. What does China want? China wants energy, resources from the Western Hemisphere, and it wants to access the American market.
He is now again trying to paint China as this business-only regime. I think sometimes to spot a really good lie, it's not just focusing on what they said wrong, but also what they leave out. Does China want access to the US market? Absolutely, of course China does. But that's not all China wants. They want your data. They want to infiltrate your domestic politics along the way. They want to take every chance that they've got to destroy the US dominance and the rule-based order. That's what they truly want. I mean, the economic benefits are just a means to an end.
No reason why China and America cannot come to an arrangement that benefits both. And Trump is very much a transactional character.
And what will that mean for the world?
It means that China is not really part of World War III in a meaningful way.
Yeah, that's right. China is just a backup singer. China is not dangerous at all.
So they're going to do a deal, they'll continue to work together as friends.
China will be friends with both Russia and the United States as Russia and the United States fight each other.
We're seeing some of these big companies like OpenAI and Anthropic signing up to government military surveillance projects. What does that mean for the average person?
So for the average person, it means two things. It means digital ID, digital currency.
Okay.
So what that will allow is for the government to basically monitor everything you do online and control all financial transactions. It can basically program your bank account. So like you can't buy cigarettes or you can't buy drugs. And this will allow the government to basically categorize everyone and put everyone into a certain database to monitor that person. And once you're able to categorize everyone, then you are able to use AI to predict their behavior.
Isn't this what goes on in some parts of the world?
This is what goes on in China. And that's how I know about this.
The thing that he leaves out here is that the reason that the Chinese Communist Party is able to have a digital control over its citizens, it's not because of their AI. It's because of their crappy political system that has a tight grip on its citizens. It is not technical, but political.
Okay, so I operate in a gray area where I do not interact with the Chinese internet. So everything I do is in English. It's meant for consumption in the Western world.
I've debunked this before, but I'll repeat it. There is a specific type of propaganda that the Chinese Communist Party pumps out all the time that specifically targets English-speaking people in the West. And what makes this more deceiving is he is using that point to position himself as a supposedly neutral party here. He's basically saying, because I'm speaking in English, I am not a propaganda tool of the Chinese Communist Party.
And I don't talk to Chinese reporters. I have no Chinese media presence.
He does have Chinese media presence. A simple Google search on the popular Chinese social media app Little Red Note, you would find tons of shorts about him. Again, that is another straight out lie.
So Japan would fight to ensure that Taiwan and China were never to unify.
Now, I understand a lot of people think that semantics don't matter, but when it comes to Taiwan, semantics is all that matters. In this 2-hour-long interview, he constantly uses the word unify, and that is straight out of the Chinese Communist Party propaganda playbook. This is not a unification. It is an invasion, annexation. Those are the right words to use.
Because again, if China and Taiwan were to unify peacefully, Japan would be cut off from the entirety of Southeast Asia. And Japan relies on Southeast Asia historically for resources, oil, minerals. So if China and Taiwan were to unify, basically Japan would feel a bit threatened.
You see what he's doing here? He's subtly shifting the blame from China, the potential invader, to the defender, Japan. He is saying it is not because Japan would be threatened by this aggressive authoritarian neighbor. There will be a conflict because Japan is resource hungry. Any sane country living beside an aggressive authoritarian regime would obviously be worried, because you know what happens when an authoritarian regime invades your neighbor? You're next on the menu.